Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Shut Up and Enjoy, the podcast that the podcast that reviews, breaks down, and allows us to actually enjoy fandom material for the first time in the multiverse of madness and mayhem. I'm one of your resident nerds, Jedi Master and Jedi Master Chris, joined by my equally nerdy co-host and also another esteemed Jedi Master, Dante. Today's episode.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Today's episode is a big one. We are going to be doing a full series wrap on Ahsoka season 1. There have been a lot of things going on with this one in the fandom, from this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life and Star Wars is doomed to I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would, to I would say our mutual opinion of it was pretty damn good.
I'm good. Yes. Very, very enjoyable. And again, that's kind of what we're here to say on this podcast. It's just we shut the hell up and we enjoyed it. So there you go.
Contrary to popular belief in society nowadays, you and we are allowed to actually enjoy something.
Imagine that. It doesn't have to be controversial, doesn't have to start any arguments.
Absolutely.
Just sit down for an hour, put a smile on your face, and enjoy.
Absolutely. And just as a preface to this conversation, we were talking today earlier about Ahsoka and actually had to stop the conversation so we could maintain our wild theories and enthusiasm for this podcast episode. So we pulled ourselves away and went back.
It was tough.
For you, our wonderful, devoted 6'5" fans who have listened to it thus far, which honestly, one of the better launches I've had. 6 fans as of now.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
And we've actually had 302 Spotify impressions already in a week.
Not bad. Not bad. Yeah.
That's some good stats right there.
Maybe we're saying some shit people want to hear.
Right? So Ahsoka, what were you expecting, or what did you want to see happen in this series?
It's funny that you asked that because I never really have expectations, never really have wants. I guess the one I do have is to be entertained. And the series did that in spades. I was wildly entertained for all eight episodes. There were no quote unquote filler episodes or anything that you could just throw away and roll your eyes at. I was engaged the entire time. And when you sit down and you want to be entertained and you get that fulfillment, that enjoyment, then everything just all works out. And this series definitely did that.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? I mean, yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat where honestly, I was a little skeptical when they first announced it 2 years ago at was it D23?
Yeah, one of them, Star Wars Celebration, D23,
something like that. I was skeptical because I was, like many, when I first saw Clone Wars, I was like, who the hell is this? Anakin never had an apprentice. What in the Force are you talking about? And so I eventually went back and I rewatched the Clone Wars. I had seen the original movie, like the Battle of Christophsis, when it first came out, and then didn't watch the series. And I have since gone back and rewatched it a couple times now. Same with Rebels. And so I didn't really see the point of doing an Ahsoka series, because I was like, there's why now that they're grasping for straws. They've done their 3 movies. Now they're just trying to figure out what the hell to do, because Disney purchased Lucasfilm, or purchased Star Wars from Lucasfilm. they're grasping right now.
Right.
I am proud to say I was wrong.
Look at that.
Completely and utterly wrong. Um, and I was definitely live texting friends season 7 of Clone Wars when Dave Filoni somehow brought me back to 2005
Mm-hmm.
when I was watching Revenge of the Sith in theaters and reliving Order 66. It was the same, like,
What the fuck?
and just now seeing and like essentially reliving that trauma
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how Ahsoka survived it to then go on into Rebels. Ahsoka, I think, in Star Wars has one of the best, if not the best, overall character arcs and character
Right.
development.
Right. And
And
it's still not done. So
it's
that's a
still
good
not
thing.
done. Still not done. And so seeing all of that culminate and seeing Ahsoka appear in Mandalorian, which I thought was a really great way to almost screen test how they wanted to do her,
Yes.
was genius. I think that
Yes.
episode was phenomenal. Introducing Morgan Elsbeth, introducing Ahsoka, like I absolutely loved it. And that got me hyped up for the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing Filoni is really good at is making previous appearances essentially trailers for the next thing.
Yeah, I think this is what they used to call backdoor pilot. So we'll
Yeah.
put it out there a little bit. We'll see what happens if the fans like it. Although again, with this fandom, you got to kind of be careful with that. They'll
Yeah.
crucify some things. But see if they like it, and then where can we go from there? And the good thing about it is it wasn't so integral to the Mandalorian that had this series never come to pass, then that episode would have been a perfect little standalone
Mhm.
episode just within the Mandalorian. So it was a good way to put that introduction out there, get the fans a little bit hyped for it, and then you can turn around in a couple of years and come out with this series. And it all worked out quite well.
It really did. So once we saw like the pilot episode, like what were your first impressions when we saw picking up Morgan Elsbeth and Balin Skull and Shin Hati, these two people who we've never seen before, know nothing about, and there were still so many questions, but we'll get to that.
All
Um,
right.
what were you thinking going first through the first couple episodes?
I like the way that it started right off the bat with action. And there was action that we saw in the trailer, which is fine. But once it got into the episode and how it all came to be, how they got onto the ship and how they fought through to get, now we see what exactly was going on in the trailer. Okay, they're on the ship, they're kicking ass. Why are they kicking ass? They're kicking ass to get her out.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened. So it started right away, straight up action. Let's get into it. Who are these people? Oh, I'm interested. We need to know who they are and why are they doing this. I'm glad that they started that way with all action.
Yeah, and so what were some of the critical points that you remember people brought up about the how they started it?
One thing that, again, we'll try to be a little bit nice to start this thing, but we know that fandom is a little bit
If
batshit
you
crazy.
look back at our texts from earlier, we are very much not nice to those.
We're going to try to be nice on the podcast.
We can start. We can
We
start.
can. Well, you have the one for reserve, so you might get a little. I had the rum and coke
I
in a paper
really
plastic.
don't appreciate how people just can't enjoy things.
One thing, and I think we'll get into this as we go through on the podcast to talk about this season. A lot of people want things hand fed to them. They need to know every little thing. Well, who is Shinhati to Balin? Is she his daughter? Is she a Padawan? Are they Sith? Are they not? Let it play out. They just got on screen. Now, granted, we have been watching them on trailers for the last 6 months, but they just got on screen. Let it play out, let it go, and see what happens. Calm down.
You're literally in chapter 1 of the book.
It's the prologue. It's not even
Like,
yeah.
even then, because the prologue and everything on Lothal. By the way, this is definitely riddled with spoilers.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. We haven't really said any spoilers yet, but spoiler alert from here on out. Everything on Lothal was leading up to what was a shot-for-shot reenactment of the last scene of Rebels, which blew my mind and I thought was incredible cinematography. But you're right. People there's this urge where they want to know everything about everyone who might have appeared in some aspect of some way on some level in each scene. But I think it almost takes some of the magic out when you're actually spoon-fed that, and it becomes almost patronizing.
Right. Like you're not smart enough to figure things out or smart enough to actually wait.
Exactly. Like I don't go and read the last 2 chapters of the book and then go back and start it from the beginning. Like it's like what we learned in grammar school: first, next, then last.
Exactly.
That's how we go.
Right.
And I think they did a really good job with it. They didn't give us everything up front. You saw the evolution and a little bit of the history of Baylan Skoll, of everyone in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker, and I was just older than you when the Jedi Temple burned, and lines like that. So there is a past. He was actually a Jedi. He was part of the Order. Do you miss it? I miss the idea of it. Like, so he was old enough, and that's giving you some filler, but there's still questions that allows for originally all of Legends to be created. If George Lucas spoon-fed us everything in 1977, we wouldn't have Legends. We wouldn't have Thrawn. We wouldn't have Ahsoka.
Right. It'd just be all that one thing. And that's all we know. That's all we need, right?
Yeah. And so I really like how they deliberately don't spell everything out for us, especially in the first episode, in that pilot. And you really there are some nods. You get a little bit of Hera, you get Chopper, you get Ahsoka, especially Hu Yang, David Tennant. Chef's kiss. David Tennant on that casting job. I'm also a huge Doctor Who fan. So it was incredible to see him be able to reprise his role in live action from the Clone Wars stuff as well.
Good stuff. Yes.
But yeah, and so moving on to the next couple of episodes, it got heavy really fast.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that helped it get heavy was you saw they made a point to really dive into Ahsoka's regret from leaving the Order, which is very evident that she has this regret from when she's talking about why she left Sabine, when she's talking about her hesitancy to train her again, as well as if you watched Clone Wars, you saw that she was upset when she left the Order.
That, again, going back to wanting to be spoon-fed, that was another criticism that a lot of people had, is that, they're not saying why. They didn't show that she had regret. They're not saying why she didn't train Sabine. All the subtext was there. It was all presented for you through dialogue, through actions, through the conversations with Hu Yang. All that was given right there. Sometimes you just got to dig a little bit deeper, catch the meaning.
Those
sometimes
skills.
the one of the funniest things I always say is that I watch all programs with captions on them. Don't really need it, but sometimes it's just good enough to be there because there's some subtle things that you don't quite catch on to. Sometimes when you're looking at things on the screen, and it might be something in the background or something, So we have the captions on, so that might be a good idea for some people who don't quite get the
Yeah.
subtext, and don't quite understand what's going on, and only want to see laser swords battling and not really listening to what's going on. It was all right there.
Yeah, it really was. And it's almost disheartening to see people like walking away from Star Wars. Because one thing, like that video you sent me the thumbnail of earlier, it's like, what are you gatekeeping? Like, what Puritan mindset of Star Wars are you trying to gatekeep? That makes it so you're telling you're telling other people they shouldn't enjoy it because it's not your ideal version of the material.
That is the craziest thing I think that's going on right now.
There-
If you don't like it, just don't like it. Just don't watch it. Just don't have it any part of your life. But
yeah.
if you sit back and make 5 YouTube videos about something you don't like,
Mhm.
are you just doing that for clicks and views? Just for the algorithm?
Or
Just
do
because
you
it's
actually
popular?
like it, but you think you have to say you hate it because you need clicks and views?
Right, right. Do you need to nitpick every little thing? Well, for the first 2 episodes, Ahsoka walked around with her arms crossed. Okay.
She wasn't what I remember from Clone Wars. She's 30 years older. Are you the same little shit running around that you were 30 years ago? That's one of the big things.
Hilarious.
It's like they have this mind of Ahsoka, like burned, this image of her burned in as like Anakin's apprentice, and she's never allowed to grow up.
Right. She's a
One
grown woman now.
one thing that I saw that really speaks to like the mindset of each of the different, I guess, eras of Star Wars was, I can't remember if I sent this to you, but it was Star Wars works best when it's used as a lens by filmmakers and storytellers to reinterpret their favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
For George Lucas, it was the Kurosawa films, Hot Rods, World War II aerial dogfights, Shakespearean tragedy, and Flash Gordon. That was 4, 5, and 6. That
Yep.
was Hope, Empire, and Jedi right there. Even got
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of that in 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
For Filoni, it's Wolves, Lord of the Rings, Lone Wolf and Cub, Arthurian legend, and various world mythologies. Balin and Skull and Hati, the wolves that are from Norse mythology chasing the sun and the moon. That's exactly what it was. There were
Mm-hmm.
direct parallels. Sitting up on the hill with the wolf was very similar to the action shots in The Hobbit. The wide landscapes, very Peter Jackson in New Zealand.
Right.
But then the other part of it is, this is why the sequel trilogy didn't work. It forced the idea of Star Wars through the Star Wars lens. It became Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail.
It's
So
on sale.
it essentially, well, hints for Loki, Ouroboros.
Stay tuned.
Um, and I think that really speaks to it, is that people have this, it's George Lucas's 4, 5, and 6 or nothing. But yet they all wanted legends and got mad when Disney bought Star Wars and retconned everything. But now
Right.
it's coming back, but it's not coming back in the way that they thought it would or wanted to. And it's the same thing like we were talking about with other series, where you have your thoughts and hopes for it, and if they made your thoughts and hopes, it's too predictable. But if they didn't, then it was just crap.
Right.
It's a no-win situation.
Right. It's nothing you can do because you put your, for lack of a better word, hopes and dreams into somebody else's head. You know, try to enjoy the story that you're given
Mhm.
and not the one that you made up. That's fan fiction at that point.
Yeah.
And don't look at it through that lens. Look at it through the lens of what is presented to you. What is the story that's given to you, as opposed to what is the story that I wanted to see?
Exactly. And the story that we saw here was it I think it was exactly what it was supposed to be. It was the hunt for Ezra and Thrawn.
Right.
That's what we knew this was going to be from that first fight in The Mandalorian between Ahsoka and Morgan. The whole thing of
Mhm.
where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Right.
You cued Dave Bautista. Who is Grand Admiral Thrawn? What is Grand Admiral Thrawn? But yeah, I think it really tied in well to what they were supposed to do because the end of Rebels or in the World Between Worlds, Ezra says, "Come find me,"
Right.
and it plays exactly in. We knew this is what it was going to be.
Knew that's the story that was coming. So just let it happen. Let it be. Imagine that.
Shut up and enjoy it. Exactly, and the way that they did it, I think, was really cool. I think all in all, I've come around to a second galaxy. If you recall, I was very skeptical and hesitant
Yes.
about it
Yes.
at first, and I'm coming around to it. The reason I was skeptical about it was the galaxy that we know already has unknown regions in it.
Huh?
So why not utilize that, then blow open to a whole other galaxy and potentially dwarf everything that's happened? Like in my eyes, it's almost like your your house might be a cluster right now, and that's the only thing you know. So everything is like ride or die, live or die, every decision within your own house, because that's what the dynamic is. But then once you start comparing it to everyone else's houses in your neighborhood, your problems might not seem as bad, and there's more data points. So you might realize you're also going through the same thing your neighbor's going through. And like,
Huh?
I'm worried that it dwarfs like the Galactic Empire. They were the cinematic bad guys for years. So now there's these other a-holes in the next galaxy 2 blocks over, and they can destroy the Empire like that. Like, and so that those were my concerns. But I think the way that they tied it in was it was better than I expected, and I'm on the upswing.
Yeah, I think that even though there is a second galaxy, clearly there was no easy way to get to it, you
Yes.
know. Um, and perhaps no one would even think of getting to it had the Night Sisters not called in Morgan, hey, come get your mans,
Yeah.
and then go from there. But I think also having a second galaxy would be kind of the only way you can explain away Ezra and Thrawn not being seen for so many years, you know, because there was no way to get back to
Yeah.
that that other galaxy. Now, at the same time, if you think about this,
Space whales.
space whales, they, that had to be something from that second galaxy wouldn't allow them to get back to the first galaxy. I mean, obviously, we're talking about Thrawn here, who is the greatest military mind. If he was stranded there for so many years and couldn't come up with a way to get home, then again, that kind of sort of explains why we had to do. Okay, we got to have a second galaxy, or we can't just say the only other thing they could do was, his ship was broken for, for 30 years or whatever. Um, or I guess 10, 15, or however many
Yeah.
it was. But so it kind of makes sense to have that. And then you can go the other way of saying, hey, at some point when Ahsoka, Sabine get back, there's no way of getting to that second galaxy again. Because they don't have the map
Yeah.
to get there. That was destroyed. The Purgle probably ain't fucking around with that no more. After they get there, people try to shoot them up.
They get their ass handed to them, and it looks like they're driving through a gun range.
Yeah, they pieced out after a while anyway. So
Yeet.
so that's a way of getting away from it. And then again, we have the same one of the complaints that you kind of hear from the other series, because they always go back to Tatooine and they always go back to the places that we know.
These are
We
all.
only saw one planet in that other galaxy.
Yes.
So who's to say that there are more planets there? Who's to say that it wasn't just that one?
And
You
we
know?
also didn't see Tatooine at all.
Nope.
We saw Coruscant. We saw
Lothal.
Lothal. We saw, oh my God, what was that? Cetos
Mm-hmm.
and Peridia.
That's it.
All planets, aside from Coruscant, all planets we'd never really seen live action. This was the first time we saw Lothal,
Mm-hmm.
which there yet no Jakku, no Tatooine, no Naboo. I mean,
Right.
can't do Alderaan.
Here you go.
She gone a bad. Um, so yeah, I think it did a good job exploring and expanding the galaxy a little bit. And even the time we saw on Coruscant, it was not, we saw new buildings on Coruscant. It wasn't necessarily the same opera house or the Jedi Temple. Like we saw new stuff, which I
Right.
thought was really cool.
Right.
Balin and Shen, what do you think is going on with them?
That is blowing my mind because I don't know. And I'm excited about it. Shin at the end, again, spoiler alert for those who didn't watch. Um, at the end, when she met back up with the Raiders and she raised her lightsaber, because I guess she's in charge now. This is me, I'm in charge. You kind of get the feeling that she was already starting to waver away from Balin. And then of course he pieced out on her,
They're
like,
just
hey,
like, we're done now. Our paths are.
yeah, you got some other stuff going on. I'm out. I got things I got to do.
But that's also unique too, where that doesn't really happen, because on the dark side, the apprentice usually kills the master.
Right. But were they dark?
And on the light side, they usually become a knight and then they go through the trials. This was this wasn't any part of that. It was almost a middle ground where the master was like, we're done.
Right.
And then Shin essentially went and had her mental trials throughout of like, what do I want now? Do I want to go back and go with Thrawn? Do I want to make a name for myself here? Where do I want to see myself in the Force? And I thought that was really cool the way that they did that, because they're not light or dark.
Right. Right. They're their own thing. Didn't he say he was training her to be something different?
Yeah.
Or something else?
Yeah. Something.
So, and that's another thing. We'll never know what exactly he was training her for. And did he then change his path once they got to Peridia and he started getting that call?
What was calling him?
what was calling him. So it's a lot of questions. It's good questions. It's not anything that let's just throw that away. We don't care
It
about it.
gets the brain going. Like it's
Yeah.
there are so many different things I can think of where they're going, and I'm excited for these characters. Like I honestly, I might be one of the few people where I was take it or leave it, Andor for me. Like I'm not head over heels for Andor like everyone else was. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I was entertained. But I just knowing how Andor dies, I I can't see myself getting invested in a show about that character.
What where Andor was a bit different than the other shows that we've seen, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka now, Book of Boba Fett, which I still believe was Mandalorian season 2.5, but we'll get into that at another point. The way that show was different is I feel like that one was a drama that just happened to be in the Star Wars realm. And by that I mean it was a great show. First, had good writing,
Mhm.
phenomenal acting, set pieces were great. They did,
It had a solid lineup too, getting Andy Serkis
yes,
as
yes,
well.
phenomenal dialogue. You know, you could tell time was
That
put
that
into this. It
speech that
wasn't just
Mama Andor had
um
when
sure.
she was the hologram and she was essentially like "fuck the Empire," but
Yeah,
we can't drop an F bomb.
yeah, which they totally should have.
They absolutely should have.
So so that's what made that show different than the others. So and then of course we kind of know where it's gonna go. We know what happens to him at the end.
Yeah,
Uh, we know what this is leading up to. So it was a bit different getting that getting that show out to people and getting them to understand it and like it because a lot of people for that one didn't like that one, whereas a lot of our favorite YouTubers loved it but don't like this. It's a whole thing. It's just it's
it's
so crazy.
yeah,
Um, but for me, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I'm I fancy myself a bit of a writer, so I chew that beautiful, delicious dialogue, and they were in actual places as opposed to being too much on the volume or too much on sound stages. They were
yeah,
out, you know. You could hear the waves crashing and
yeah,
things like that, which is it was a beautifully put together show.
yeah. I agree. It looked nice. It had good writing. I don't know. I don't know, but we'll do an Andor episode later.
I
We
got you.
yeah, we'll do an Andor episode later. Um, one big critique on this one was
Sure.
people were upset that you had to watch 7 seasons of Clone Wars and 4 seasons of Rebels and these episodes of Mandalorian and this episode of Boba Fett. Like, where someone's coming into Star Wars, but they don't have all of the time and they haven't been following this for 25 years plus. How can someone get into it and be able to enjoy this without needing to watch 1900 hours of Star Wars?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it because I did not. I did not watch all of those things. I believe I watched some of Clone Wars with my oldest son when he was a little guy. I definitely went back and watched the last season And I think that was a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I wasn't in depth with all of that with Rebels and where this person come from, where that person come from, and so forth. So coming into this with fresh, and I think that's another reason why I didn't really have any expectations. There was no one thing that I was looking for. I was again just looking to be entertained, which I was, and so I didn't have that rich background like a lot of people did, but I also wasn't lost at all, not one bit. I didn't have to be spoon fed every little thing of where this came from, where that came from. Why does she have two lightsabers where most Jedi's only have one? It didn't matter. She had two. Shit, I wish she had three. It doesn't things like that. It doesn't matter. It's just what it is. Didn't question why Balin and Shin's lightsabers were orange. No one has orange lightsabers. Doesn't matter. That's just theirs. Shit, I wish I had one. It's just one of those things. Why not? So if anyone had questions about that and that was a heavy concern, don't be concerned. Definitely watch it. It's 8 episodes. It's not even a full 8 hours of your life.
Yeah.
And
Most of them are like half-hour episodes.
yeah, you won't be lost. You won't be confused. You'll be right in there. They give you enough information to go on to enjoy the show.
Now, one thing I might say to counter that would be
Mhm.
the episode that existed within the world between worlds.
Mhm.
Because you see that, and then you see Hayden Christensen come in, and it's, why aren't you Darth Vader? Why are you looking all human-like? And so I think at least you may want to go watch those episodes of Rebels where they get into the world between worlds, because that plays such a big overtone of this show.
So my question would be, and again, it didn't matter to me because it all just flowed quite well for me. The question could possibly be, well, how the hell did she get into the world between worlds?
Yes.
Now, some things that I didn't see those episodes again, but some things that I know is that then you kind of sort of have to go somewhere and like open a door, and
Use the
none
temple.
of that happened. She just fell off a cliff, right?
That transition though was beautiful.
Yes, yes, it was. Yes, it was. And everything about that episode, which I think is most people's favorite, even the ones who quote unquote don't like the series because they want to get clicks and views.
Yeah.
Again, we won't dwell on them too much today.
We're keeping
But
it
even they
first few
enjoyed that episode. A lot of good things. It was good fighting in there. It was good. It was good storytelling. It moved the plot along. We understood that, hey, okay, this is a lesson for Ahsoka. She passed through the lesson, and then she got even more lessons when she went back to her ship. And then the little thing that you had to pick up and notice, she says she had 19 more of those tapes.
Mm-hmm.
19 more. So there's possibility to see even more Hayden Christensen coming back and then getting even more lessons. So it's all good stuff.
Absolutely. And it was great to finally see that live action Clone Wars armor. And then it was one really cool thing I liked about that is it hit on something that isn't hasn't really been talked about, of the Jedi were using child soldiers
Yes, they were.
to
Yes, they
fight
were.
their war.
Hmm?
Anakin was what, 18, 19?
Yes, that was before he was married, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, no, it was after he was married, 'cause it was after episode 2.
okay.
So he was
So yeah.
married, but he was still late teens, early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and a war general,
Yep.
bringing in then a 12 to 15-year-old for over the span of the Clone Wars of the 3-year period. And nobody's talking about the like, hey, are we sure this is a good idea? What we're doing here?
Hey, they needed to fight, so they had to do what they had to do.
So I really liked how they had those moments where Ahsoka was her younger form. Great casting, by the way, with young Gamora.
Yes, really good casting.
Great casting.
Yes.
Um, I personally would have liked to have seen in the scene on Mandalore. I would have loved to have had Ashley Eckstein take over as they age her up and give Ashley
Mm-hmm.
Eckstein, who was the voice of Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, get her little 2 seconds of live action time. I think that would have been great because she did a phenomenal job voicing Ahsoka. Um, but I think that was really cool seeing that older mindset in the younger body being like, hey, why are we doing this? This was why?
Yeah. What's happening?
And she could almost sense there was something not right or completely copacetic with the war.
Right.
And then she does some move in like the next episode where she like fishtails a Venator class ship to cover the launches of um the fighters. That was one thing that Thrawn, I think, mentioned. There was some tactical move that Thrawn mentioned that
Mm-hmm.
I think it was our first YouTube drop, Screen Crush with Ryan Airy that brought it up. That in Clone Wars, Ahsoka, her capital ship comes in, and to help launch the fighters, she flips it, turns the belly towards the enemies, skids it in so the fighter bay on the top of the ship can then open and the
Mm-hmm.
fighters launch closer to the enemy, the separatists, and get after them, which I thought was a really cool drawback because that was one of those moves where Ahsoka is talking to Sabine while they're on the was it T2 T10 fighter, her Jedi ship, uh,
Yeah.
where she was like, I pulled several risky moves and not all of them worked out in my favor. She lost a lot of clones in that battle. And that was one of those things that she had to come to terms with the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the regret of all of that. Maybe it was all for naught. The Jedi still lost. The galaxy was thrown into turmoil. Why the hell did we do any of it?
Right.
You kept getting those callbacks, which then, as you were saying earlier, brought that subtext to the surface.
Right. Which is good storytelling, which is the way it's supposed to
It is
work.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
it's just good storytelling. So where we left everyone essentially did a switcheroo
Right.
in the galaxy. So Thrawn and Ezra and the Great Mothers are back in the main galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Morgan Elsbeth got
She gone.
cut open.
Yeah.
Ahsoka, Sabine, Balin, and Shin are all in the Peridia galaxy, still on Peridia.
Yep.
Where do we think this is going? Are Sabine and Ahsoka going to stay there? Is Balin going to stay there? Is he going to go light the rest of the beacons of Minas Tirith to call for Gondor's aid? Like, we all saw that. And yes, it was the same color as his lightsaber, and it might have been one of the fountains of the Force or something, but like, I was getting very much Beacons of Minas Tirith there.
I think what happens is Shin gets her raided crew together to go and hunt out the Jedi's. For whatever reason, I think she's just hell bent on destroying Ahsoka, Sabine, and anybody else that's in the way. I think she gets over there. Ahsoka gets up with him like, "Hey, you need to chill out, roll with me. Let me train you. Let me help you." Because she did kind of sort of mention that at the end. Hey, let me help you. So then they start, they sing Kumbaya. They all hang out. Ezra now starts to do what they did. Hey, we got to go get our peeps and bring them back. But at the same time, we also have Grand Admiral Thrawn back over here in this galaxy. He's the greatest military mind. He's a tactician, so we got to fight that as well. So I think they're going to have like two missions. Trying to keep Thrawn at bay, while at the same time trying to figure out how to go and help Ahsoka get back. So it's gonna be interesting. Now, I not on purpose, but I left out Balin there because we just don't know what's going to happen with that due to the unfortunate past. So it would be interesting. I feel like a lot of things were left on the cutting room floor with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got the end part where he's standing on the statue looking out over the mountain. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But I feel like now that's just probably going to be a secondary story or plot.
Do we think if there is a season 2, do we think that they're going to recast Balin or just leave him there? Because of the way that they left him, pretty much can say that he's the father.
Right.
And the other thing I want to know is how much time passed between when Ezra got back and those final cutscenes. Because there was a costume change for both Shin and Balin. And the mood was different between Sabine and Ahsoka.
One of those that'll be one of those questions that we'll probably never get the answer to. Again, I think that the ending, the whole part of once Thrawn's ship blasted off into hyperspace to get to the other galaxy, I think a lot of things were reworked after that to try and piece it together, cobble it together to end it. Because it was a lot of back and forth of jumping back and forth here and there, that type of thing. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Do I think they're going to recast? I would say yes, they'll probably recast, but the recasted person will be Balin's essence or his spirit in another character. So that character won't be Balin's goal. It'll be someone else with Balin's goal in them.
That's an interesting theory. Who do you think would be a good cast for that?
Now that I don't know. I guess it would depend on what are they going to do with the character? Because right now they're on Peridia, which they said is where the the witches came from.
Yes,
right,
the Night Sisters of Dathomir.
right. So that's their original home planet. The only other characters we saw there were the Raiders and the turtle people.
And references to the Zepho.
Right. So, like everything else, like we keep saying, it's a pretty big planet. So kind of hard to believe that there's nothing else there. There's no one else there. So I could see, hey, Balin gets over to this mountain. It's already people hanging out there. Bro, what you doing? Get up out of here. Some shit goes down. He takes an L or gives himself willingly,
Yeah.
and then go from there. Apparently, that who knows what was loaded onto Thrawn's ship. It
Were
could
they,
be more.
were they corpses or were they actual bodies? Like just stasis.
Oh, I was about to say a corpse is a body. What the hell?
But corpses or like cryogenically frozen, like death Mirians to
And carbonite.
yeah.
All questions that hopefully we'll get answers to. Who knows?
Now, are you hoping for a second season of Ahsoka or just a really long Heir to the Empire movie?
Well, I don't hope for anything. I typically just like to, whatever happens, happens. This is one thing that we
You
kind of
like
talked
to
about
shut up and
earlier.
enjoy.
Yeah. So one of the things that we kind of talked about earlier, I think it was a mistake to announce
Mhm.
the movie so far out because now, no matter what happens in Mandalorian season 3 that we just had, Ahsoka season 1, if we get a Mandalorian season 4, if we get Ahsoka season 2, the average consumer, the average person who looks far out, they're looking for their Avengers team up movie, will always be looking for where's the thread that's going to connect this to that, as opposed to taking this piece of media, consuming it for what it is, taking it for what it is, and having that be its own contained thing. Well, now are we looking at, well, okay, so where this ended, is that going to lead into a season 2, or is it going to go right to that movie that we already know about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, by the same token, okay, so do we get Mandalorian season 4, Ahsoka season 2, Mandalorian season 5, Ahsoka season 3? Well, shit, you told me it was going to be a movie. I'm looking for a movie now. I don't want to see these. I want to see it on the big screen. Too much. Too much. Just relax and let it all happen. Now we've already gotten. There was a Taika Waititi Star Wars movie that's probably not going to be anymore.
Mm.
There was the not Rogue Squadron. Was
Yeah.
it Rogue Squadron? Yeah, Rogue Squadron movie that's not going to be anymore. There's the Game of Thrones dudes were supposed to do a movie that's not going to be anymore. Ryan Johnson trilogy that's not going to be anymore. So that just off the top of my head, I came up with 4 different movies that are not, or 7 different movies that are not going to happen. So that's why I think you just should not have even announced it. It should have just happened if it happens.
Yeah, I do wonder how much filler there's going to be between those because you don't want to oversaturate it because then you're spoon fed and you really know how everything's going to end. And
Right.
you don't want to make it too predictable, which
Right.
I don't think Filoni will do that because he's been hitting the nail on the head every time,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. Filoni and Favreau they know what they're doing.
Right.
And we're
We
not
That's some questions on that book of Boba Fett, but we'll talk about that another time.
yeah, we'll get to Boba Fett later. Uh we'll get to Mandalorian 2.5 later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for now, I'm super thrilled with the way that it went over. I fell in love with Ahsoka that much more. Great to
Mm-hmm.
see Hayden Christensen back in live action. Great to see that he's finally getting the appreciation that he deserves after all of these years. That's still, every time that clip of him at Star Wars Celebration comes up and everyone's cheering for him, and he's like, you guys are making me emotional. It's like, you've been waiting 20 years for this. Enjoy it like you're supposed to now. Like, and seeing this new emergence of Star Wars stuff and bringing back old things, Obi-Wan, Hayden Christensen, Ahmed Best, and even bringing him in as Keller and Beck, like all of that stuff, and seeing these people get the redemption that they deserve.
Right.
And I'm almost afraid to know what would have happened if social media were around in 2005.
It would have been so bad.
Oh my
So bad. I guess back those days we had those message boards or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And
AIM, AIM and MSN and MySpace.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited to see what's going on. Lars Mikkelsen was phenomenal as Thrawn.
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson, talk about a perfect fan cast that came to light. Got to see Morai again, the little owl.
Yeah.
Ezra was a great cast. Sabine was a great cast. Excited to see more of Jason.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's another good, I'm glad you brought him up, because another character that those who watched all the shows and know who he is and so forth, but they didn't dwell on it. They just mentioned it really quick. Hey, yeah, his dad was a Jedi and he can hear shit. and then boom, that was it. He hangs out with Chopper. That's it.
Our favorite war criminal.
That's all we needed for that. That's all we needed to know about that character. He may turn out to be one of the greatest Jedi ever, but they didn't overdo it.
I just want to see a spin-off show of the adventures of Jason and Chopper.
It'll be fun.
Jason's going to the dark side if that's the case. Especially in the first episode when they're in that chase scene with the hyperdrive where Chopper's like, shoot him down, and Hera's like, we can't. They're gonna fall into the Bay City, and Chopper goes, is that bad?
Do it.
And then in the hearing of the you can't trust a droid, and Chopper's like, oh. and I took that personally.
You son of a bitch.
You rat bastard. But yes, we hope you guys all liked Ahsoka. Even if you didn't, that's fine. But we hope you enjoyed our analysis of it. Clearly, we both enjoyed it thoroughly. Enjoyed every minute of it. I want more. It left me with more questions at the end than I did in the beginning, and I missed that in Star Wars. It's letting my mind wander and go into the lore, which I'm super, super excited about to see. So all in all, how many kyber crystals do you give this?
Out of what?
Out of 10 kyber crystals.
Out
of 10 of General Grievous's kyber crystals that he stole from the corpses of Jedi.
I think we'll go a good 9.2. Can you break up a kyber crystal?
Why not? Shin had them in her braid, so.
See that? And we didn't even get to that.
There'll be the mythology. We'll be doing mythology and stuff. We'll be doing extended universe. We got more material than there are names in the phone book. Do they have phone books anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's all for this episode. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. It was an absolute thrill to finally be able to break this all down. I know we missed stuff. I know we couldn't hit on everything. If we really did, we'd be here for 4 hours just on Ahsoka. But anyway, leave a comment below. I think I can add a poll in on Spotify of like how you like it and all that stuff. But yeah, like let us know what you guys think about Ahsoka and how many kyber crystals you would give the series as well. And my rating is like 9.5 kyber crystals out of 10, by the way.
I like it.
Yeah. So yes, thank you so much for tuning in and shutting up and enjoying with us on this episode of Shut Up and Enjoy. Stay tuned for more episodes coming really, really soon. We're about to jump into Loki as well. But until then, may the Force be with you.
Always.